チャコールが染み渡ったイチョウ並木の通りに有頂天に袖を振る金魚が泳ぐ記念馬のようさ簡単に嘘ぶけるラムネ玉魔法にかかったハムシのように淡い夢にとらわれこの夜を抜け出せない
Okay, so we're back at it of Tamamori's story. I'll never forget it. 2 years ago, we met an elderly man on the train heading to the capital. He had been somewhere between 75 and 80. He was the master of Ikeda Manor, and he would eventually take in Kawase as an adopted son. We don't know what adopted son is. Ikeda, that mysterious old man who didn't know how much longer he had left, had grown quite fond of us young men, making our way to the capital to become the future of the nation, and told us we could rent a room in his mansion. Thank you for your kind offer, but we are already being taken care of by a person named Oizumi. Don't bother him with all that, Minakami. Yeah, he's offering to do us a favor. We might as well not waste it. Minakami has signed and said, please take care of this too, as he bowed his head. When he told us he wanted to adopt us, the conversation gradually snowballed. At his sudden proposal, the grandparents I left behind in the country crossed my mind, so I of course hesitated, but Kawase had immediately accepted. He had no one who came to mind back in the country. Right when this joke was shared as we traveled, started to have a tinge of truth with something happened that destroyed all my hopes. Someone had stolen my luggage. A young man with his head worn low had run off with my bag, which I left in the aisle. With money like reflexes, or maybe he really was a monkey. The thief had escaped my grasp. Before I could even reach the second car, he was jostled around by the crowd and started to slow down. I figured that now I'd be able to catch him, but he passed it along to the next thief. Honestly, I was also slowing down from exhaustion. Even when I yelled, "Thief!" it was drowned out by the sound of the crowd and the train as it was pushed further back. When he tried to disappear into the third rail car, Minakami shouted as loud as he could. A bag with 300 yen in it was stolen. Whoever gets the bag would get half of it. What a huge lie. Just like Minakami said, the look in everyone's eyes had changed. With the bar of maturity, my bag was instantly taken back. From the thief and was suddenly being passed above the heads of the crowd. The moment it was finally back in my hands, the buckle of my bag snapped. Was further down inside the train car were manuscripts, and more manuscripts. Some greedy miser must have tried to wrench my bag open by force. One page was swept away by the wind, and one fell into some far-sided of the lady's hand. Like I was saying, some landed on the head of innocent bystanders, and one fell by my feet. Actually, I fell by Kawas's and Ikeda-san's feet as they came up to me and Nakami. Tawarika, what's the meaning of this? Weren't you going to the capital to study to be a doctor? Of course. They say you know what goes on in a person's head by the contents of their bag, but what's all this? You should learn for Kawase-kan. Don't really want to remember what's happening after that. I got drunk, ended up between two of the rail carts, sobbing on and on. Nakami was the only one had me go back to my seat with a real look on his face. Anyway, off with Akidas. At first, and even the shopkeeper at Umebashido. Even if I had used some underhanded techniques, which were children the only one who didn't fall for it? Why were children? That was probably why I would never like children for as long as I lived. When the sun had completely set, I got back to the ambassadors. A man was there, trailing his umbrella. He seemed bored. He stopped, startled when he saw me making my way back.
こんばんは。こんばんは。お店、今日はお休みなんですか？今開けます。
I said as I put my hand on the doors.
鍵とかないんですね。何か？いえ、何でもありません。
He was kind of a gloomy guy. I told him to come in, but he just fidgeted, showing no sign of entering.
今日は本を買いに来たんじゃないです。え？金魚上路返してほしいなら返します。いえいえ。
It must have been something that was pretty important to him. It's not like I wouldn't return it if he told me to. But he waved his hand and shook his head as if to tell me not to worry about it.
もらってください。それは君への贈り物みたいなものですから。はあ？お名前は？僕、氷川と申します。すみません。失礼ですが、あなたと以前会いましたっけ？いかんせん、興味のないことはすぐ忘れてしまうもので。いえ、僕が君に出会ったのは1ヶ月前が初めてです。
When I began working at Bachido, so of course, the name Hikawa wouldn't sound familiar to me. I knew it. He was the weird one.
とある本を探していて、この梅鉢堂なら題名だけで本を探せると噂に聞き、やってきたのが始まりでした。長くなりそうですか？ ごめんなさい。
He eventually closed his umbrella and came
実
inside.
は僕、君の原稿を読んだのは昨日が初めてじゃないんです。初めてこの店に来た時も、君は床に突っ伏して原稿を書いていました。それを勝手に読んでしまったんです。鳩人間と物乞いのお話とか、キャラメルと三角定規が格闘するお話とか、面白くて。
It didn't feel so bad to hear all that. I grinned as I took a step closer to him.
さっき伺ったお名前、何でしたっけ？
氷川喜十郎と申します。博士と呼んでください。
Professor.
博士？
I wasn't even going to ask what his future study was. Maybe professor was something like a nickname? If it was a nickname, I had one too.
私は
玉森くんですよね。
え？
原稿の著名にそう書いてありましたから。嬉しいな。こうして君の名前を口にできるなんて。
Formerly a weirdo Korean nutcase.
それで探していた本は見つかったんですか？
いえ、でももういいんです。僕は今君の原稿に夢中なので。
私の原稿に。
The man, or rather professor, was slowly coming closer.
今日店番が終わったら僕の家に来てくれませんか？
え？
君とじっくり、それはじっくりとお話ししたくて、今日はお誘いに参ったのです。
申し訳ありませんが、私は浪人生の身、怠惰に過ごしている時間はないのです。
Ronese is a student who failed their university entrance exam and is currently studying to take it again.
ええ。
そういうことですので。
いつなら時間をいただけますか
？1年はかかるでしょ
う。残念です。実はもう君をもてなす茶菓子や料理も用意してしまっていて。
茶菓子と料理？
はい。
1年と言いましたが、ちょうど明日の夜が空いています。
本当ですか？
はい、今日の夜でもよかったのですが、東洋キネマの方に野暮用がありまして。
活動写真に？お忙しいんじゃ。
活動写真は風俗研究の一環です。それを怠惰と捉えますか？
ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい。嫌わないでください。
As his face turned red, Professor withdrew like a turtle hiding from harassment.
それでは明日の夜、君を迎えに行きます。それでは。
Goodbye. And with a somewhat nervous look on his face, he skipped away. Even though being lured by tea snacks into accepting the day itself was guaranteed to be a pain. It depends on how I happened to be feeling when the time came. I honestly couldn't have cared less whether he liked me or not. It was 5 o'clock in the evening. That's the time before the movies. Would have liked an airplane though. I'm older by the register to look at the goldfish while the drink professor had given me. I had a feeling, but no customers came in for that. After that, the shopkeeper hadn't returned either. It was time to close up shop, so I shut the doors and started walking towards Toyu Cinema. When it began to slow down, across the street I heard angry shouting coming from somewhere.
もう一度言ってみろ。
聞こえねえのかこの税金泥棒が。
I looked across the street and saw a soldier in the drunk arguing. After the navy had been reduced and disarmament enforced, the harsh criticism soldiers received had gotten worse, despite their pampered status not so long ago. I understand nothing. The military was getting hit hard. Now the world was a rough place for soldiers. Maybe someone like me who was hooked on tea and sweets had it good. There was a crowd forming outside the Toyo Cinema, so the show must have been starting soon. Toyo Cinema was a movie theater that had just opened a year ago. It opened in 1921 in Jubyonshu after it was destroyed in the Great Kanto earthquake. It was rebuilt and reported. Surviving the air raids of World War II, it stayed in business until it closed down in 1970. The building was demolished in 1992. And if that wasn't awesome enough, in order to attract customers, it would borrow films like today's movie from Nikatsu and rerun them. It felt kind of strange when I thought about how all the people here liked horror films. It wasn't crowded as Asukasa Hoku, but I liked it here when it's gloomy atmosphere. When the doors opened, the crowd began to move. I figured if I stood there, Minakami would show up eventually. I strained my eyes, but I couldn't find that gap ahead of his at all. Maybe he's getting lost in the crowd. For now, I look at the ticket and check my seat number. I wasn't a child, things came up, shit happened. Is he not gonna appear? I followed the back of the crowd and entered Toya Cinema. I walked by the people who were already seated and sat down in my own seat. The one next to me was completely empty, of course. 10 minutes went by, but he didn't seem to be coming. Eventually, all the seats except Minakami's had been filled. The entrance was blocked by these standing customers. Minakami, I'm not sure if your luck is really good or really bad. I crossed the damp, have a ticket in my hand, then stuffed it deep into my pocket. Now then, let the curtain rise. When it comes to the right eye, there's also a left. A right hand and left hand, a right brain and a left brain. The body is split in two halves. You want to have one heart and one stomach, but there is more than enough proof that people can also have two personalities. Dr. Jekyll was a man wavering between good and evil. Through Goro's research to find the evil within him eventually awakens the scoundrel Mr. Hyde. I had never doubted it was me. That may have been because I knew I was a half-assed person. The movie was over. People began to silently head home. Harborman let out a long yawn. I watched the crowd leave as I glanced at the empty seat beside me. It was a seat right in the center. If Minakami had tried to come, And after the film started, people would have complained, so he wouldn't have had any other choice than to stand and watch. Suddenly someone came up behind me.
遅かったな。
Beside me was the caramel seller.
本日の上映は終了しました。
When I finally looked around, I saw that the theater really was empty.
連れが戻ってこないのだ。
お連れさんってどんな方？
おかっぱ頭で目が細く。
ああ、その人知ってますよ。でも今晩の上映は来ていないと思います。
ならなぜあいつを知っているのだ？
今日の昼に来ていたからです。
He had come to the matinee showing of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
何？
お兄さん、その人のこと調べてるんすか？
調べてるというわけではないが。
What did this mean? We had definitely agreed to meet for the evening show. Perhaps seeing through my shortcomings, the caramel seller smiled cruelly.
これ以上聞きたいなら、それ相当のものくれないと。
遅くまでご苦労。もう結構だ。
The look he made told me he didn't care. I stood up from my seat and passed the free-wage guy. As usual, it was pouring outside. I sat out of the rain for a while, the lightning flashing down. I returned to the lobby, but no matter how long I waited, it didn't look like Minakami was coming. A fly nervously flew around and around an exposed light bulb. I found myself staring into fidget as I watched it. Its shadow on the floor. I was annoyed. He was making me wait alone in a place like this.
あれ、お兄さんまだいたの？今日の上映は終わりですよ。
分かっている。
約束の時間、間違えちゃったんじゃないですか？
断じてない。
どうだか、お兄さん抜けてそうだし。
私は客だぞ。なんだその口の利き方は。
常識ある客なら閉店前に帰ってください。
Why was everyone treating me with such contempt? I directed my childish rage towards Minakami. Minakami's story. Minakami was a pretty mysterious guy. What made him mysterious was something not even as a writer could explain. How could I put it? He was way too nice. He was always smiling, no matter what kind of foolish thing caused what I did. It may have shocked him, but I never made him hate us. When I told him, "Look, a bird is flying by," he took his eyes away from his book and said, "So there is." He'd once read a book on the different species of birds. That's why I brought up the subject. But he didn't say anything else. It was only when I asked him about how birds fly that he began to gush. Quiet and reserved, Minakami was a walking encyclopedia. I had a feeling that he was like a deep lake that made no waves. That's the kind of guy Minakami was. It was mysterious even for him to make pen button go see the same film at noon and disappear at night. Right, it was mysterious. Anyway, There was only one way to get rid of this uncomfortable feeling. Going to his house, across through the bridge, we headed towards Koishikawa. That was where the nostalgic Oizumi residence was. The madam of the house hated me. She would even give Minakami more food than me during meals. The snake eye umbrella that old hag carried around really suited her. I obviously couldn't ask her directly if Minakami was home. If I circled around to the back, his room would be. At that moment, the sliding door further opened and Madam came out. I immediately hid behind the telephone pole.
あら
The old hag wood was sharp.
そこのオンボロ傘はタマさんじゃありませんか。ごきげんよう。ごきげんよう。何用かしら。今日は私急いでます。すみません。何でもありません。そう。私これからお留守にするけど、勝手に上がらないでちょうだいね。みなかみは。ああ。皆さんなら活動写真に行くとかで出かけましたわ。え？怪奇映画の招待券を差し上げたのよ。出かけたのはいつ頃ですか？
The old woman grinned.
何も知らないということは何も聞かされていないということ。私も詳しいことは知りませんけど、あなたよりは暇なことはしていないでしょうよ。
She stared at me as if evaluating my worth, then started to hurry past. Suddenly she stopped right next to me and scoffed.
靴だけはおきれいね。ありがとうございます。褒めてるんじゃないの。せいぜいきれいに使いなさい。
Leaving me with her confusing insult, she disappeared in the fog. I felt the years of my life return when the sound of her footsteps vanished. But why wasn't Nakami home? I doubt he was still at the Imperial University Library. With nowhere else to go, I stood there for a while. Till when a young man ran right by me.
直し君。ちょっと待ってくれ、話を。
He held the way disappeared into the house. I have to pull him back, outstretched hand, and pull it into my sleeve. I let her start for the 100th time. No Shuzi, no Shikan was Madam's only son. He didn't go to school because he was sickly or something, but it wasn't like he was a shut in. He hung around Jumbo-shu. Didn't seem to have very good relationship with Madam, so they purposely went out of the way to avoid each other. That alone was reason enough for Naoshika and I to get along. I want to come and visit you, Naoshika. You would probably see through a scheme like that. I ended up sneaking around the back of the house and peeking through the gaps in the fence in front of Minakami's room. The lights weren't on. It didn't look like he had come home, just like Madam said. I brought my face away from the fence and shook off the droplets of water. Then I lifted my shielded head towards the rainy sky once more. Had I made some kind of mistake? We weren't supposed to meet at Toyoshima, but at Suido Bridge. We had met up at Suido Bridge both the time we went to ask us, Junikai, and when we went to Ginza, when we went to Toyo Cinema last month, we had met at the theater. There was one less possibility. Maybe we hadn't really had plans to meet in the first place. No. I rode the streetcar in total confusion and returned to the ambassador in a daze. Lighting it into my room before I could even turn on the light. That's when I saw the unbelievable scene before me.
No!
My goldfish was floating. When I turned on the lights, the unmistakable reality finally burned itself into my eyes. When I fell to my knees and got closer, the strong smell have hit my nose. No goldfish. It wasn't total shock. I folded a near London manuscript page and placed it over the fishbowl. They say goldfish don't die. They send that big fishbowl in the sky. I felt better to say it about a fish that had passed away on its own, that one that died on a cutting board. Well, that was the gist of it anyway. I wasn't sure what made this goldfish special or even what sort of personality he had, but I avoided using the word died. It wasn't out of affection, but because I knew death was something repulsive. Once it stopped raining, I'll give it a proper burial. I lay down in the futon and never bothered to put away and remember Minakami. The guy had probably gone off somewhere. For some reason, I was surprised by how quickly I accepted that. The rain beat steadily against the window. When I happened to turn onto my back and look up at the sky, I could see the shape of the sun behind the clouds. Morning had come at some point. I turned off the light. I left on all night, tilling on my stomach. I must have been feeling so lazy because of the bad weather. The most troubling affliction in this world wasn't stiff shoulders or a sore stomach. It was listlessness like this. When I got really bad, the whole day went to waste. I couldn't manage to wake up this morning, so I was going to be late for work. Any plans I had for afterwards would be more trouble than they were worth. I hope you can understand, boss. Even if figure I'll go back to bed, something hit the tatami with a clack. It was like someone had struck a wooden clapper from a kabuki show right beneath me. I couldn't sleep without that noise, so I hurried and ran downstairs. Kwase had come in the first floor, had a handkerchief pressed against his nose and mouth, and was holding a brown of his other hand. Apparently he had been striking the ceiling with the handle. When he saw me, he politely handed me the broom.
朝から一体何なんだ。起こしたいなら2階に来ればいいだろう。
そうしようかと思ったんだけど、ここは土足厳禁って思い出してね。
ほうきで天井を叩くのも普通に厳禁だ。
君ってほんと他人に厳しいよね。
Kawase struck a match.
おい、タバコも厳禁だと言ってるだろう。
古本は箔がついてこそだって言ってなかった。
ヤニの汚れは箔とは言わん。
Kawase leaned against the bookshelf with a thud and let out a long, thin stream of smoke. There was plenty I wanted to say about that attitude of his, but I dragged myself to the register instead.
本当に何なんだ。 ただ嫌がらせに来たわけではあるまい。
そうなんだけど、しかしここにある本を全部読むなんて、みなかみのやつ相当狂ってる。
昔からそういうやつだったろう。
そういえば昔から狂ってると思ってたよ。
While we were learning grammar particles, he had been reading Koyakai Izumi's The Poor People's Club. I never once thought he was normal, though he didn't surprise me anymore. But Kawase was looking at the bookshelves with awfully fresh eyes.
結局みなかみのことを何も理解できなかったの。
理解しようとしなかったの間違いだろ。
言えてるね。そういう君は理解できてた。
私は少なくともそのつもりでいた。例えば、奴は突拍子もない世界が好きなのだ。自分の知見と重ならない常識外れの物語を特に好む。類行とか旧作とかな。
それにしては同じ本を二度読まない。
なあ、
本当に好きな物語だったらさ、擦り切れて穴が開くほど読み込むはずだよね。
To Mother, his eyes somewhat vacant. He wasn't looking at the bookshelves. From the start, it was been as if he was staring out at some scene in the distance.
擦り切れるってのはよっぽどじゃないか。
でも俺はそういう人間を知ってる。
本当に好きな小説ならば、鑑賞用と消耗用と保存用の3点は必須だが、
その人の場合、手元にあるのは消耗用の1点だけだった。
誰の話してるんだ？
ああ、脱線したね。みなかみの話だった。
Kawase blew out some smoke, then took in another puff. I was wondering why he was speaking so calmly. The whole thing was making me feel uneasy.
それとも、あいつは一度読んだだけで何もかも記憶できるから、本を読み返す必要はないのかな。
おそらくそれだな。ちなみに私も本を読み返さないが、理由はそれだ。
君とはちょっと違うだろう。奴は小学校の教科書から何まで全部記憶してる。君の場合は自分に都合のいいことだけだ。
I could remember interesting words and passages. I had most of Ryoko's work memorized, for example. I was confident I could get even work of his correct. Every word of his correct. But the first page down to the release date and publishing details. But it was strange. If I didn't like it, if it was a tough read, or if I had even the slightest prejudice towards it, the paper itself looked completely blank to me. It happens to me during the Imperial University entrance exam, and that's why I had to frantically search for the questions on blank pages. I am a blank page. The result, as you know, was failure. But Munakami was different. Just like Kawase mentioned, Take could remember everything, from his elementary school textbooks to what he had for breakfast over a decade ago, as if he were reading them out of a diary. That's probably the main reason he never read the same book twice. But why was Kawase bringing that up now?
用がないなら帰ってくれ。お前だってそろそろ講義の時間だろ。
ここへ来るのに欠席の連絡を入れてるから、それに関して心配ないよ。
そんなに私といたいのか？
いや、どこから話せばいいのかわからなくて。
どこからって。早くから私を叩き起こした起因たる旗迷惑な本題にまだ入っていないのか？
早くからって言うけど、 もうすぐ昼だよ。
I was directing my boiling anger towards him, but meanwhile, Kawase seemed to be avoiding my eyes. He finally lowered the brim of his cap, casting a shadow over his expression.
君は昨日の夜どこで何してた？
東洋キネマだ。活動写真に行っていた。
一人で？
一人ってなぜそれを？
みなかみに一人で活動に行けって言われたの？
奴は来なかったのだ。だから何なのだ。言いたいことがあるならはっきり言え。
みなかみが死んだんだ。
What?
心当たりはないかと思って聞きに来たんだけど。
For no particular reason, Kawase dropped his cigarette and nobbled it out with the toe of his shoe.
おい待て、ここは道路じゃないんだぞ。
ああ、ごめん。やばいな。動揺しているかもしれない。
もう何回目だその動揺は。ってだからみなかみがどうしたって？
柳橋の下に引っかかってたんだって。
Yanagi Bridge, the bridge in Asukasa, the one past Oshanomizu, and the end of Kendo River. I had only heard the names, but in my confusion, the geography wasn't coming to
今朝
mind.
俺の家に電話がかかってきたんだ。だからほら、行くよ。
行くってどこへ？
浅草警察署の死体安置所だ。身元確認を頼まれている。
一ついいか？
何？
お前は一体何の話をしているんだ？
みなかみが死んだ話だ。
I said something brief to the shopkeeper, then hauled the streetcar with Kawase. I think this song doesn't fit the mood. I'm sorry. The people who did the song were like, what the hell? We were supposed to be a sad moment. Why are you putting this dancing beat song into sad moment? There seem to be a lot of people wearing face masks. Visible germs scatter about with all the coughs and sneezes. Kawase, the germaphobe that he was, seemed to have decided to spend the nearly hour-long trip holding his breath and didn't move an inch the entire time. I just looked in the opposite direction with my mouth agape like my goldfish that I forgot to bury. We got off at Shitakiwa Bridge, transferred to the Muramachi line, and came to Asuka's bridge. After walking for a while, we stood in front of Asuka's police station, South Mutomashi branch. That's when we finally spoke.
嫌だったら来なくていいんだよ。
何も恐れることはない。
This song, it doesn't fit the mood at all. I was about to cry.
カフェでも行こうか。
ああ、
Wait, you're not going? When we got back to the cafe near Kendo Bridge, we ordered our usual coffees. Carl sipped his, but mine was getting cold as I tried it with my spoon for the 100th time. What was I so sad about? I was so mistaken. The course was Minakami's.
冷たかったね。死んでるとは思えなかった。
He just looked like he was sleeping, seemingly oblivious that he was bound for his grave.
水上は死んでいない。水難者は上がったというのだ。水上は上がった。
だがあいつには首を絞めた跡があった。長い紐も見ただろう。水死じゃない。首吊りだよ。
首吊り。誰がそんなこと。
誰がって警官も自殺ですって言ってただろう。
自殺なんかするわけない。誰かが水上を考察して川へ投げたのだ。
君ってば本当に話を聞いていないな。水道橋に同志の紐が結んであったと言っただろう。
だからなんだというのだ。
橋から落ちた拍子に首の骨が折れて即死。その後紐が切れて川に落ち、流れて柳橋だ。
殺されたのだ。
あのね君。
Kawase was about to let out an annoying sigh, but he suppressed it and seemed to finally give up.
でも何千何万って物語を読んできて、人生最後に選んだ物語が狂える悪魔ね。魅力があるとは思えないんだけどな。
水上はなぜ帝大に行かなかったのだろう。なぜ私に嘘をついて昼の部の活動写真を一人で見に行ったのだろ
う。玉森くんがわからないんじゃもう誰にもわからないよ。
Or there was another possibility. Maybe he had gone to see it with someone else.
通り魔の仕業だ。神保町に現れる怪人の話だ。
それは君の空想の話だろう。夜な夜な人をさらう怪人とか言う。
だから現実に怪人はいるのだ。
いろいろやばいよ玉森くん。
みんな傘を差して自分の足元しか見ていない。だから誰が誰を川に突き落とそうと見ていない。目撃者がいないのはそういうことだ。
誰も現場を見ていないのはそういうことかもね。
だろう。
でも自殺だよ。
Suicide? Wasn't suicide the perfect suspect cause of death a culprit could hope for? How dare Kawase accept that so readily?
お前、それでも友達か。
友達だからこそ自殺の理由を探してあげてるんじゃないか。
Understanding that was Kawase's way of showing kindness, I lowered my raised fist. Kawase was the same as me. He couldn't understand any of it either. But the reality was that we were beginning to think of how we would mourn for Minakami in our own ways. If at all possible, I would have liked to feel the same as Kawase, but
差し置くわけがない。
差し置く？誰が？何？
あいつが私を。
Minakami had crammed the impression of all the books he had read into his notebook, but my name wasn't in there at all. Not even the character from Tama Tomamori, the character from Mori, wasn't in there either.
もしかして君さ、君は水上が死んだことより水上が自分に何も残さなかったことにショックを受けてる。
Not understanding what he meant, I fell silent. Kawase suddenly laughed.
そりゃ二重にショックだよね。あいつあんなに君に惚れてたのにさ。俺が死んでも君はそんな風に悲しんでくれる？
はあ？当たり前だろ。
どうして？
友達だからに決まってるだろ。お前も水上も。
They were my friends, Minakami, Kawase, and even Hanazawa, who wasn't here. We were childhood friends who had been together for as long as I could remember. I could even call them my best friends. I could probably call Kawase a bad friend, but Minakami and I were friends, bonded by pure trust and friendship.
さっきから何が言いたいのだ。お前までおかしくなったのか？
おかしくなっちゃいないさ。ただ自分があまりにも薄情な人間だと思って。その友達が死んだのに涙の一つ流れやしない。
そんなめめしい真似できるわけない。
あいつとの思い出の一つや二つも思い出せない。
Kawase's a horrible person.
それはさすがに薄情すぎる。
Way too heartless.
だったら友達って何なんだろうね。どうしてこんな俺を後始末に選んだんだろう。
Yeah, why? Kawase was writing phone number were subscribed in the back of Minakami's notebook. He hadn't even chosen me to handle his final affairs. The question Kawase had asked himself sounded more vicious, sarcastic than usual to me.
じゃあな、店に戻る。
そう、明日の昼水上を田舎に連れ帰ることになってる。君も俺と一緒に来なよ。水道橋で待ってるからさ。
いかん。
どうして？ついでにおばあちゃんに元気な顔を見せておやるよ。
あんなど田舎二度と戻りたくない。
あ、そう。
ただいま戻りました。
はい。
Back to work as usual. It felt like the shopkeeper's voice was awfully close. His shadow clung into the shoji.
ご友人でしたか？
はい。上がっていたのはいつも本を借りに来ていた友人に間違いありませんでした。
そうですか。ご愁傷さんです。さぞおつらかったでしょう。
店を閉めてすみません。
いえいえ、今日は休んでいてもいいんですよ。
もう店は閉められませんから。
I tried saying something sincere, but deep inside, I just wanted to lie down and bury my face in my pillow until I could barely breathe.
天使も夜は気をつけてください。これは怪人の仕業なんです。
怪人？
ええ、どうやらこの神保町に怪人が現れるようなんです。6尺もある大男で。
君は風の噂を信じているのかい？いえね、君はまだ物語の中にいるようだから。
His stories.
現実は探偵物語じゃないのだよ。現実の犯人は限られた中にしかいない。あるいは犯人などいない。
Imagine if the shopkeeper is a culprit.
あなたに何がわかるんですか？
君が分子として成長する良い機会かもしれませんよ。
人が死んだのに成長？
あなたはご友人を失った。失った分は何かで補わなければいけません。
そんな合理的に言われても。
でも君なら理解できるはずです。分かってほしいのは私なりに君を励ましてるつもりだってことです。
Losing Minakami was like losing a piece of myself. Look for the piece and hang into it. That must have been what the shopkeeper was trying to say. The cold way he said it, though, took out of my personal feelings and made me face a logical reality. But if I were the shopkeeper, I probably would have said the same thing. If I were to take it a broader sense, it was like he was saying I should be thankful I was still alive. I thought that was reasonable. But at the moment those words didn't resonate with me at all, because although I understood I had lost Minakami, I didn't feel any sense of emptiness or loss. It must have been because of this terrible uncomfortable feeling I had.
すみません。嘘をつきました。
はて、嘘とは一体何だろう。
全然辛くないんです。昨日まで会っていた知人が死んだのに全然悲しくないんです。
I will never see that carefree face ever again. I will never hear that laid-back voice ever again. I did my best to understand that.
私は最低な人間なのかもしれません。
その自覚があるだけであなたは十分善人ですよ。ね。
And I crossed the counter. I thought if I put my face down, the tears would flow. But behind my eyelids, a surface clearly was Minakami profile as he read a book. I wonder how much time had passed. The clock on the wall in front of me was at 5. When I happened to lift my face, Professor was there.
玉森くん、こんばんは。
こんばんは。
お迎えに上がりました。
迎え？
約束したじゃないですか。今日は僕の家に来てくれるって。
I had promised something so annoying, hadn't I?
休養があるんです。また空いてる時でいいですか？
玉森くんも意外とお忙しいんですね。ごめんなさい。失礼なことを言ったなら謝ります。
本を買うんですか？買わないんですか？
買います。
Professor said as he thrust his hand into a shelf and pulled out some books.
これ全部買います。
I could see there were at least 10 books. I counted 2, 4, 6, 8, but my fingers grabbed part way, so in the end, I stopped counting.
2円です。
高っ。レコードが買えちゃいますね。
買えないなら戻してください。
買います。
Can we choose to go with him?
もうお店閉めちゃうんですか？
言ったでしょ。休養があるんです。
そうですか。一つご提案があるんですが、聞いてくださいますか？
Anyway, I looked at it. Professor was a strange man. I watched out earlier conversation play out through the window as I rode this swingy streetcar.
玉森くんの代わりに僕が店番しておきます。
いいんですか？
はい、明日はお休みなので時間はたっぷりとあるんです。
じゃあお願いします。6時になったら店を閉めて勝手に帰ってくださいね。
はい。
お礼と言ってはなんですが、好きな本を好きなだけ読んでいてください。
そんなお礼だなんて。僕は君の力になりたいだけですよ。
Did Professor kill Munakami? If it was Professor, I would kill Professor. I thought he was just some weirdo, but he was actually a pretty considerate weirdo.
それでは。
玉森くん、うまく言えないんですが、元気出してくださいね。
I was heading to the Aizumi residence where Madam lived to ask her to let me into Munakami's room. But even a stranger like Professor could see through my weakness. I probably won't have the strength to ask Madam for anything in my current state. In that case, it was always Kawasa's pool. I jumped off the streetcar and headed towards Aikida Manor, where Kawasa lived. I'm enjoying it, and yeah, I'm having the most of fun. I'm gonna play it more for sure. And yeah, if you like it, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, follow me on social media, and etc. Look at the mark on his neck, and I thought I saw it. Is it really him? I don't have another image with him. Oh, I have this one. Maybe I get closed. But yeah, thank you for watching. Be up because there's gonna be more for sure. Bye bye.